NLP Mastery, Neuro Linguistic Programming. How to maximize your potential and learn how to reprogram yourself. Written by Richard Avant. Narrated by Russell Newton. Collapsing NLP anchors. 1. Identify the preferred response. 2. Identify the state you wish to change. It is essential, firstly, to identify the response you would prefer for the unwanted response. Choose an occasion where you experienced strongly the preferred state, then step into the memory and intensify it before anchoring it on one part of your body. Fire the anchor to make sure that the state is powerful and the NLP anchor is properly set. Once you're satisfied that anchor is firmly in place, think of the state you wish to change. As you re-experience the response, anchor it to another part of your body. Fire the anchor and then break your state by shifting position, talking, etc. Once you've tested and made sure that each anchor is properly set, fire both anchors simultaneously. The effect is usually one of mild confusion. At this stage, hold the anchors until the confusion dissipates, then slowly lift the anchor of the unwanted state, and a few seconds later, lift the anchor for the resource state. Test by trying to trigger the unwanted response. Instead, your response should be more neutral, or the resource state should dominate. Repeat as necessary until the resource state dominates. 5 keys to anchoring. There are 5 keys to getting anchoring to work. If ever a person tries to set an anchor and it doesn't work, it's because one or more of these keys are missing. Here are the keys. The intensity of the experience. The stronger the state, the easier it is to anchor, so you're going to be making sure that you have a strong state before you attempt to anchor it. The timing of the anchor. This is crucial. States follow a kind of bell curve pattern. They get stronger, reach a peak, and fade away again. You want to bring in your stimulus or trigger to associate it with the state as the state is getting stronger, certainly not as it's fading away. Many NLP books and courses suggest that you apply the stimulus at the point just before the state peaks. Now, to my mind, this is like someone giving you directions that say, okay, there's a post office on the left. Now, half a mile before you reach that, you want to turn right. You don't know where you need to turn until you've gone past the landmark. How would you know when you're immediately before the peak? Peter Freeth, who's an NLP business consultant with a very practical turn of mind, has a better way of timing the stimulus that I like. He suggests applying the stimulus when you notice the state change. By the time you notice the external signs of a state change, it's probably well underway anyway, so that should time it about right. Apply the stimulus, which can be a word, an image, a sound, or a touch, when you notice the state changing. The uniqueness of the anchor. It has to be something unique, rather than something that happens all the time, so it doesn't get set off by accident. For example, you could anchor a state of extreme exhilaration to the action of sitting down, but you wouldn't want to be jumping up and going, woohoo, every time you sit down for a meal. Still less if you're a churchgoer. Replicable. The stimulus needs to be something that you can replicate easily. When you set an anchor, you're going to want to replicate that stimulus so you can test that it's worked. You need to be able to replicate it in the future so you can fire it off anytime you need it. So you could anchor a feeling of confidence to the sight of a pigeon flying across the sky, but then you'd have to have a helper to carry a pigeon around with you. As you're about to step up to give your big presentation, you'd have to give the order, "Release the pigeon!" Much better to have a small, unobtrusive gesture you can make, or a word that you can say to yourself, or an image you can bring to mind whenever you need it. And, of course, the trigger needs to be exactly the same each time you use it in order to work. If it's a kinesthetic anchor, it needs to be in the same place at the same pressure. If it's voice tone, it needs to be the same voice tone. So make it something easy to replicate. Number of times. Our brains make associations in 2 ways. One is intensity, as we already mentioned. Just one instance can be enough to associate a state with a stimulus, if the state is intense enough. If the state
Sample complete. Ready to continue?